Elise, are we recording? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us on such a short notice. Part of the reason for that short notice is that we're paving the way. And as I mentioned on the interview, this is the very first time we put up a program this way. And we're discovering different pieces where different hangups are in the onboarding process and in putting in folks under this program and appreciate everyone for their patience. What are we going to cover today, or what are we trying to do here today? More than anything, I want to start putting a face to a name in a lot of the leaders that you're going to see in the hospital, and also be able to set up some expectations at what you should expect at both facilities. And any of our nursing leaders, any of our physician leaders, Elise, at any point, and Jerry as well with our EMS leadership, if you at any point have any further comments, please stop me. This is meant to be a discussion and a dialogue, but this is the content I wanted to make sure that we covered for sure as you guys go into the next step, which is your orientation shift. So we'll start with welcome, introduction, scope of practice. We'll talk a little bit about the facilities. If you've got on your brain that, especially if you've done a similar position in the past, and you go in and you do what you've got to do. I want to be able to expand that role and really start having you think a little bit about what the goals of the facilities are, what we're trying to accomplish together as a team. Together we can do a lot more. So I want to give you a little bit about background out of both Vintage and the Woodlands. We've already talked about the scope of practice, but we're going to talk about it again. Roles and responsibilities. Really, what are some of those expectations? And just like you have your own non-negotiables, and I would love for you to let me know what those are. Important that you know some of those basic expectations, process, workflow, communication standards, and then some of the folks that I've interviewed, they missed the first town hall. We send them the recording, but I just want to make sure everyone understands how the payment piece works, and then we'll have some time for question and answers. The the big thing here, and part of our reflection for the day, is that today, we are going on a journey to try to create a program that doesn't exist, understanding that we're going to have a shared purpose of providing this exceptional care. And it's as we get paramedics joining into our emergency department and our emergency department team's going to be where it's at, and understanding that your skill and experiences are invaluable, not only for the patients, but also for the entire ED. And again, right now we're building that foundation. It's going to take a lot of patience. It's going to take a lot of collaboration, but it's what's going to allow us to grow. So again, the reflection today is coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. So that's really where we want to go with this program. With that, we'll start with some introductions. So most of you in the interview have already met Elise, but Elise, go ahead. For those that have not met you, please let us know a little bit about you and your role within the paramedic program.
Hello, everybody. I'm Elise. I am the lead practice administrator for IES Houston. I have been supporting Dr. Rosillo, our VP of Operations, in launching this new program. I am very excited to be a part of this new beginning. I have been with Dr. Rosillo for a little bit over 8 years. We started out in Brenham together and then moved our way to the Houston locations. And I am excited to meet all of y'all in person and continue this journey.
Excellent. Thank you, Elise. So Elise will be your contact person. She will also start working on shifts. So I know she's already, especially those that have completed EPIC training, we've already requested your availability for orientation shifts. So we should be able to start getting those as soon as I coordinate with, once you send me your availability, I'll coordinate with Curtis, Paul, and Summer, depending on the site, to really get you orientation shifts and we can get the ball rolling. With that, next, Joe. So Joe's our president of our IES Houston. I work alongside Joe. And so Joe, maybe a little bit about you and why do we need paramedics in the emergency department? How's this different than a tech position?
Yeah, thanks, Rosio. Hi all, Joe Young, ER doc from Florida. Came to Dallas for residency, went to residency with Dr. Rosio here. So I've known him for a little more than 12 years now. No, longer, 14 years. Um, yeah, happy to be here, support this program. Obviously, I think paramedics could play a huge role in our emergency departments with regards to expediting the care and delivering the care that our patients deserve in a timely manner. And so, just truly look forward to having your presence in the emergency department for sure.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. I see our leaders, Jennifer Cook, maybe a little bit about you and maybe a little bit about your thoughts on the paramedic program.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I am Jennifer Cook. I am the Director of Patient Care Services here at the Vintage. My role is a little bit unique here in that I kind of function as the Senior Nurse Executive slash CNO. However, I am a director here and the only director at Vintage. So when I started here 3 years ago, I was the Director of Perioperative Services. And at the beginning of this year, added the emergency room to my scope. And so I've learned so much. I love the ER. I love the fast pace down there. It's amazing. And then in August, took over the rest of the facility, inpatient and EVS and some other things. So a little bit unique here. I've been a nurse for 24 years and worked in a hospital since I was 16, so 30 years. It's been quite a while. So I started my career at my work in the ER as the ER admitting clerk when I was 16. So that was fun. So I've kind of been, in and out of the ER for a long time. I have worked when I worked in the ER when I was in high school and college. There were paramedics that worked there, and they came and helped us a lot. So I am definitely looking forward to having y'all come here and work alongside of us to help us mainly at the front end. So helping us in triage and in the lobby and really just being that extra set of hands that we need. And later on down the road, maybe we increase the scope. We need to see what happens because this is new, as everybody has said. This is a new program for us, and we are so excited to have y'all. I can't wait. I wish y'all could have started yesterday or last week, but we're going to get you in here as soon as we can. I know that Epic training is maybe holding y'all up a little bit, but hey, we're going to get you in here and we can get that whenever we can. But I'm ready to get you in the doors and get you going. So if y'all have any questions for me, please let me know. My office is in administration. I'm not in the ED any longer. So if you need something, I'm down here. I don't know if Paul joined, but he is the manager for ED. So you will get to know him very well. And we do have an interim director, Curtis, which I don't know if he was able to join the call. But he will be here for a couple more months. He's helping us through some workflow issues right now. But anyway, happy to have y'all. Let me know if I can do anything for you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And the work that Jennifer's done for us in really bringing together not only the ED, but the rest of the hospital with a strong focus on the ED, understanding that it is the door for our hospital and feeds the rest of the hospital as well, has been very invaluable. So it's been a great working relationship. Thank you for that, Jennifer. Summer, do you have a moment to be able to introduce yourself and maybe a little bit about what the paramedic program means to you?
Sure. Hi, everybody. So I'm Summer Block. I am the ED director here at the Woodlands campus. I have been a nurse for 18 years. I have 18 years of ER experience, and I also have 6 years of ICU experience with an emphasis of trauma. I've worked at an almost 1,000-bed trauma center in another state, and I've worked in small hospitals that are 100 beds. So different variety, different places for different perspectives. Very excited to have you guys coming aboard. I think it's going to be a great partnership. I think there's a lot that you can bring and teach, and I think we can share that knowledge back and forth. I'm so excited you're coming to play with us.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Summer, and appreciate your partnership. And last from our leadership group, we've got Jerry. I know you all know Jerry. Jerry, you want to say a few words?
Just excited to have all of you. I have a background, as you know, in the same industry that you are in currently today, and I look forward to this opportunity for each of you. I think it'll help you gain a great understanding of the full continuum of care and some of the challenges that the EDs face when it comes to patient throughput, and you'll be able to share some of that out to your peers. I'm excited about each of you. I think you will be a great asset to our healthcare system and to IES. So thank you again for applying, and I never hesitate to reach out to me. You know that.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate everyone for those introductions. As we continue again, please feel free to interrupt me if you if you want to say something else, especially when we get to the facility. I'll pause at the end of each facility. Again, Summer, if you want to highlight any of the pieces that I left off, and same thing, Jen, please feel free to chime in. From an introduction perspective, as I've discussed in our one-to-ones, I may have been sort of inconsistent. I am Robert Rosillo. My original hometown is San Antonio, originally born in Guadalajara, central part of Mexico. As Joe mentioned, I've been working with Joe for 12 years. I've known him for 14 plus. We were both chief residents at Parkland and really enjoyed administration from the get-go. We both completed administrative leadership. I've clinically worked like boots on the ground, not just credentialed at 40 different locations. So I put them all there in fuzzy, so you know they're not theoretical locations. They're real locations all over the state of Texas. I've had about 12 different medical directorships and at least 2 regional roles. I love leadership. And the part I love about leadership is breaking barriers. I love making everyone else job in the hospital, which is a truly stressful environment, better. That's what drives me. That's what motivates me. I continuously work on myself to try to be able and be more efficient in doing that. And currently halfway done through my healthcare leadership MBA. Currently, I am boots on the ground. I work at all of the different facilities, including the Woodlands, including Vintage. So I'll get to work alongside you. I love my family. I love my family time, love food, staying healthy, racquetball. I also love aviation. So I took up my medical directors. And my Kwanzaa's right there. She's my medical director for Oak Bend, regional director, and Marcus Sims for Brazosport in Sugar Land. We were flying up to a meeting we had in Dallas. So as I mentioned, that's my role. My role is to support you. My role is to guide you. I do the clinical operations for all of our 16 locations here in Houston, and I've shared my why with you. Understand again that my entire drive is to get you to be successful. My entire drive is to make your shifts less stressful. If there's anything that's stressing, especially through this process, please just communicate with me. You should all have my cell phone number. In regard to program goals, you've heard Jennifer talk about front end. You've heard about talking about helping with throughput flow. We absolutely need extra hands in the emergency department to be able to help with that flow. We want to also foster communication and improve collaboration between paramedics and medical staff. So as you work outside in your EMS, bringing patients in, and as you see the challenges, how do we bridge that gap and work on that collaboration between that transition of care from your EMS colleagues dropping a patient off to that continuum inside the hospital. At the end of the day, our intent is also for your skills to get stronger and better, and we are going to support you through that. Right off the bat, I will teach you how to do ultrasound guided IVs if you don't know how to do that already. That is a skill that is necessary right now in the emergency department. And I would say maybe only about 1 in 5 nurses can successfully do it in my experience, depending on what site I'm talking about. But that is, difficult access, really allows us to stay off the neck with EJs. And at the end of the day, if a patient has an arm, they have a vein. It's just maybe harder to get to. Splinting, I know a lot of you do splinting on the field. Again, this is specific. Molded splinting. When do I use a coaptation splint? How do I properly mold a ulnar gutter versus a resting volar? How do I do a long leg with a posterior stirrup or posterior U? How do I stabilize that fracture fragment? So again, start thinking about not just like an air splint, but really start thinking about proper splinting as we continue to grow. Again, our scope of practice right now is a scope of practice that has been vetted through the system, that we can start working, that you can start showing us what you've got in order for us to continue to build on that. With that, I'm going to start talking a little bit about the facilities. Because again, I need you to understand why there's a need for that program and where you fit into this program. The first facility we'll talk about is the Woodlands. Man, at the Woodlands, we've been very blessed. Blessed because this story of growth is not something that happens in all of the hospitals in Houston. And even in some of our own individual facilities, not everyone has the same growth that Vintage and Woodlands has. For the month of October, we didn't have November data done yet by then. We had a 7% year-over-year growth. That's about to 91 patients a day. So when you think about the patients that you're going to be helping throughout that day, you can see our Mondays are our most active patient days with 105 patients. But the other thing I need you to be mindful and look here is our admission observation percent. 1 out of every 3 patients gets admitted to the hospital for your intensive purpose, right? Observations typically shorter length of stay. Admissions are typically sicker patients. At the end of the day, high acuity. And again, this is why we need your collaboration support. And you're like, well, doc, why does Vintage have different hours than the Woodlands? Well, this is how we base it. This is all your arrivals from midnight all the way to 11, Monday through Saturday, Sunday through Saturday. So essentially the whole week with averages at the bottom. So I just showed you we averaged 101 last month on Mondays. It's pretty freaking busy a lot of the times, right? So your softest day may be a Saturday, but look at that middle. And those are in the middle is all your arrivals. So we're getting a new patient, 4 new patients, like at noonish, anywhere from 4 to 7 patients to 8 patients, depending on the day that you're looking at, right? So you can quickly see that some of these processes like triage, like getting the patient back, like making sure we're doing vital signs, properly rounding during that crunch time where we've set some of those shift times for you guys to be able to help with manage this arrival pattern will be invaluable. So this is a little bit about some of that reasons for why you see the shift times also based on summer staffing for the Woodlands. Now the goals for the Woodlands, very simply, if you're going to think about 3 things we're trying to do, is really get that discharge length of stay down. Why? The longer a patient stays in the emergency department, because maybe we can't get to the labs, or maybe because we're trying to get them to get reassessed, every minute that the patient didn't need to stay there, but they stay there, it just gets us to be overcrowded. When we get overcrowded, we get slower. When we get slower, then we can't get new patients in. Your crew, your fellow EMS sit on the wall. This is sort of how it happens. Bringing the length of stay down allows movement in the emergency department, especially because we have to provide more care every time that our length of stay becomes long. So our current length of stay is 217. We're really trying to bring it down to 265. As we improve flow, you're going to be invaluable in patient experience. Understand the different pieces of how you can be helpful. I myself offer every single patient a warm blanket. I encourage you to do the same thing, no matter where. That shows that you care. That shows that we care as a healthcare institution. At the end of the day, if a patient is choosing us for their care, we want to make sure we're available to take great care of them. So we want to bring the leaving without care portion for the Woodlands down as well. Summer, any other comments? Or Joe, any other comments from the Woodlands?
No, I think
No.
that, I mean, pretty much covered it. And just so you guys know, so average admission rate for a facility our size that sees what we see is about 23%, and we ranged 37 to 43% year round for the last 7 years. So very, very busy admission rate. Along with that, our longer length of stays, and our hospital is at capacity pretty much every single day. So it's not that rooms are open and there's no nurses. It literally is, we have stuffed a patient in every corner we can find, and there is just no more real estate, which is a whole nother discussion. But because of that, there are many times, especially during flu season, that we do hold patients in the ER. So if they're taking up our gurney space, it bumps us out to that front end a little more for that lobby medicine, which we all dislike, and in turn also holds EMS on the wall. So multifaceted. We're also working with throughput on the inpatient side to see how much faster we can get patients out to decrease the hold time that we have, to decrease our length of stay. So lots of different irons in the fire, but we'll get the flow better.
Appreciate you. Joe, any comments for the Woodlands? Joe
No.
also works a little bit of everywhere.
Yeah, no, nothing additional to add. The acuity is high there, obviously, which is represented in the higher admission rate, which honestly makes it more of a challenge, but also more fun because the patients are sicker, and that's truly what we like to take care of in the emergency department.
And when we had one of our first administrative meetings, I'm gonna put you on the spot. How did you describe your first couple of experiences at the Woodlands?
I mean, I thought it was fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was great. The nurses worked really well together, very hard, kept me up to date on things. Movement was great. Even though it was super busy, like I felt like things were flowing. And the department as a whole and the culture of the team just made it for a great environment. And we obviously want that to stay that way and continue that way.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Thank you for sharing your experience. And as I mentioned, we work a little bit of everywhere. So he's got that insight into multiple facilities. I agree. We have a significant portion of our nursing team that's seasoned, that have done it for a long time. I absolutely love that about the Woodlands. Excellent. Thank you both for your comments, and we'll move over to the Vintage. So the Vintage also has been blessed with continuous growth, which is again why we're expanding the team. You all know very well that it is a challenge to continue to grow with and keeping up with demand from the nurses, from the nursing end, as we continue to have 10 to 15% year-over-year growth. I mean, we're still hiring, we're still doing those pieces. We need to add more team members here. So again, great growth for the Vintage. Now you saw the Woodlands on a busy day, about 100 patients per day. You're looking at the Vintage, not far off, about 92 patients on our busiest day, which is Mondays. And then you've also noticed Woodlands had, to Summer's point, very high acuity for a community site. Vintage is slightly higher than average, and we right now are about 17 or so, 17%. Plus, you include some of those transfers. You're looking at maybe 1 in 5 folks needing to be admitted or transferred. So a little bit more average acuity. So you see more of your bread and butter cases over at the Woodland. I'm sorry, I misspoke. At the Vintage, arrival pattern very similar. So when I talked to Curtis, the shifts at the Vintage, if you've noticed, there was sort of bigger gaps between some of the days. Vintage, we're about pretty steady, especially when you look at a 6-month aggregate. We're pretty steady at about the average number of patients, which is why we decided to go with 12-hour shifts at the Vintage. And we'll talk about those specific hour shifts later, and then we will also get them posted. But again, this arrival time gets very busy around 9 to 10 in the morning, and then it doesn't let up till almost midnight. The goals, now you should be very familiar with them. Again, working on our length of stay. Length of stay is closer to 200. We really need to get it to 165 so that we don't get overcrowded with the rooms that we have, with the staffing that we have. You work with throughput, you work with flow, patient experience goes hand in hand. And you can see that our left without treatment completed is 1.27. It's not awful at all. Left without treatment complete, it's a huge vital sign. So what you'll see is facilities and average in the EDBA, depending on the year that you look at, was as high as 4% was average for a US ED, community ED. So that's come down from the EDBA, and we're significantly below that. But we always strive to be able to provide care for those patients that come to see us. Now, this slide is no different than the slide I shared with you on the first presentation. One of the things to remember again is that we've got to get familiar with the facility. We've got to knock it out of the park. We've got to get this scope of practice down. We've got to get our processes down. We got to get our orientation, onboarding competencies down as we continue to work and show value. If we can in the future increase that scope of practice. We really do need the extra set of hands for vitals, transporting patients, starting IVs, IOs. Like I've mentioned, training on ultrasound guided, drawing blood, getting patients on the monitor, really assisting us with that piece about patient care. We talked about wound care as well as splinting, setting up procedure trays, helping us during resuscitations. And as you guys are pros with resuscitation, including doing the VVM as needed. When you start really trying to get into, well, what the heck does that look like on a day-to-day basis? The front of the hospital is where we need a lot of the help, a lot of the support. That front of the hospital, as you saw that significant arrival pattern, we need to be able to get to our patients, be able to do vital signs. As we try to really get patient flow in the back, sometimes patient starts, maybe at Vintage, we may start using some hallway chairs if we need to. So being able to be available for that family member is going to be invaluable. Because if your family member had to ever be spilled over to the hallway, which is unfortunate, because that day we're boarding or whatnot, you will be like an angel to them, coming and being able to expedite their care, offering them a warm blanket, asking how you can make their experience better. I think it'll be invaluable. Help, not so, again, in the front, at the Woodlands, it's also the front of the hospital. We don't have a lot of hallway chairs or hallway beds. It's more the front lobby. Starting those IVs, getting the workup started quickly, and that starting of the blood, depending on who you're team with that day, the triage nurse is going to be the air traffic controller, if you will, and they will have an understanding of where you could be the most helpful to be able to do that. So it may be a triage, it might be one of the fast track rooms, helping out with those EKGs. I really need you to be those eyes and ears, especially that as a charge nurse is the air traffic controller. Sometimes she may be pulled in multiple directions. She could be at both facilities, they could be triaging an EMS. At both facilities, they could be a second or third nurse in a critical care patient. And sometimes we just need help keeping an eye on labs and RATS delay. As you start seeing on Epic, I'll show you, I'll guide you through understanding when you start seeing some lab delays and having that mindset of, Miss Smith's been here an hour and a half, she's in room 3. I know I'm in the front, but she's in room 3. I see that doc ordered labs an hour ago. Why are they not getting done? And it may be that nurse is doing a resus. That's where you can come in and save the day, keeping an eye on those delays. That radiology's been 3 hours or 2 hours that's not read. How do we escalate that appropriately so that we can get it done? We've talked about splinting. And really, if you also see the list growing and you see that the docs or the APPs are behind, sending me a message. Raul is my medical director at the Woodlands. Saul is my medical director at Vintage. All three of us, maybe even it's just requesting your charge nurse or your triage nurse to help fire off those SDOs. But again, getting you to also expand that role into how do I become a flow ninja and help also alert as necessary. And we've talked about wound care, and you all know, and we will talk about also some of those basics in wound care. For example, when I first trained at Parkland, we love to soak, like a open phalanx fracture or a tough fracture through the nail. We love to soak that thing, sometimes depending on what attending you got, with some betadine and some saline. And then we said, nope, that is probably not smart to soak. Maybe we should, do some hydrogen peroxide. And you start seeing through research that starts dropping off. So now we irrigate with normal saline. You can wash off with chlorhexidine. So again, those pieces of wound care, as they continue to evolve, we just want to make sure you have the latest and greatest. Also, when I trained 12, 13 years ago, we used to put for burn Silvadene on everybody. The more Silvadene, the better. It was so nice and it coats. Well, it turns out it delays wound healing. Silvadene for burns is out. So you'll start picking up on a lot of that throughout the hospital, and have an open mind, and please ask a lot of questions as you get working side by side your nurse colleague and side by side your clinicians. I'll stop right there. Anyone have any comments so far? Any questions? Any of the paramedics on sort of that front end piece?
Guys, you always have questions.
I am really excited for understanding the process of how things were done many moons ago and why we have gotten to the current conclusion of what it is now based on the Silvadene explanation, Dr. Rosillo.
Look at that. I knew I was going to catch someone on the Silvadene. I just knew it. Yeah, and that's the cool part. It's it was both soothing and helpful, but it's research. It's this research that's been done. And now it's really a lot more about if you're going to do some sort of ointment, it's just about mupirocin. And a lot of it is just how we've come through this research. And this is how it helps you to be in the hospital, because you stay in that current research mentality, and you will be automatically invited to two things: my provider meetings every single month, which we do. We can do continuous education. We do CQI cases. We do sepsis cases. Your clinical care will become better. You're automatically, I've seen and met some of you at the procedure course. We have procedure course, not only that annual procedure course, but then we have site-specific procedure course at both Woodlands and the Vintage at 2 different locations. To essentially get 3 procedure courses that you get to, again, come in and share and be site to site with the doc. So that clinical care, by you taking this position, will also get better.
Okay, so I have a just quick thing quick story to tell you about the Silvadene. So back at the same time that I did work in the ER in high school, so I already kind of told you my age, right? I would lay out in Crisco, literally, because that was what we did back then. Baby oil, Crisco, and one time I must have fallen asleep and I got really, really burned. And when I was at work, the nurses in the back just had some extra Silvadene, and I put that all over me. I must have did that, I don't even know how many times. And now we know that it just didn't really help me. And, but it's okay. I don't have skin cancer as that I know of anyway. So, but the Silvadene must have helped me in some way. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we used it and it was lather all over. The more the better.
I remember
yeah.
a little white and red, wasn't it white and red? The little, yeah.
And it's soothing, It's a soothing because it's that way they made it. So, but unfortunately, It delays wound healing. And they're doing a lot of different advances with different skin type pieces that they could do. Some just silver colloid, also even just some honey. So a lot more cutting edge on that, the things that can actually improve healing. At the end of the day, in the hospital, we're mostly just using mupirocin.
The honey is amazing. I've actually used that a couple years ago for a wound, and that works well. I love it.
Yeah, it's neat. So that more to come on all of those educational pieces. That's just not even the tip of the iceberg. As we come to work together as a team, we've got to understand that you also have your basic non-negotiables. These are pieces that are going to, so sometimes they're just sort of understood and they're basic professionalism pieces, but it's really important to just bring it up so that we don't have that uncomfortable conversation later. We're here to deliver high quality care, and it's going to be under my license. And with that said, as you've seen, I don't do things lukewarm. You're going to be a representative of that. And I don't want anyone that's lukewarm. I want everyone that's hungry and is ready to work and work hard to make this program successful. We don't do things that are lukewarm at the Vintage either. About a year and a half, we were actually the top performing hospital of our size for all the entire Common Spirit Health. So we had the lowest left without treatment completed out of the entire Common Spirit Health. So again, you're coming to facilities that really truly know operationally, and sometimes there's hiccups. We all have our hiccups, and that's okay. And some workflow things that we have to do or regulatory pieces, that's fine. And same thing at the Woodlands. The Woodlands is like the crown jewel of our system here in Texas. So a lot of the facilities look at the Woodlands for, hey, how are things done? You heard also Summer has a breadth of experience with ED and the way she runs the emergency department. So that experience will also come in very helpful as we craft this program. We really do. I know you feel that you got inundated with procedures. If something doesn't make sense, please let us know. But all of that, again, we really want to follow all the procedures and protocols strictly. If something doesn't make sense, please just ask. And again, task completion is important. Documentation is very important. As you get comfortable with the EMR, please also, if you have questions about what does that proper documentation look like, feel like, you're going to have plenty of colleagues around you to help you with that. Expect professionalism like you do in the back of an ambulance and when you're working with your colleagues. And also importantly, we are 1,000% responsible for the culture we create both at the Vintage and at Woodlands. We need a team that completely understands that as we're responsible for that culture, the complaints go up and not out. There's going to be plenty of things that we can all complain about, and sometimes it may seem like it helps with camaraderie. At the end of the day, it degrades culture. So complaints, please come to me. We'll have a discussion. I promise to loop you back in 100% of the time. Please show up on time to your shifts, well rested, and ready to take great care of our patients. At the end of the day, collaboration is going to be very important. And that collaboration with any techs, with the clerks, with your nursing team, with your charge nurse. And as I mentioned, all the shifts are going to be assigned through a scheduling software, so you won't have to send shift hours. But please, if there's any changes to your shift, we do expect you to be professional and let us know. And if you're going to be late to your shift, I expect a text message. I expect a message, so I know that you're on your way, but you're going to be late, so I can adjust that. At the end of your shift, if the ER is just busting at the seams and you can afford to stay a few minutes with the approval of the charge nurse, or we'll talk to Curtis and Summer how they want to approach that. We can absolutely also think about potentially having some according to that coverage. But again, for all intents and purposes, start on time and on time. We've talked about uniform approved for the Vintage and for the Woodlands are black scrubs or red scrubs. And we talked about the documentation piece. Please help with patient experience. Patients at the end of the day, when they have a great experience in the ED, Research shows they're more compliant with their treatment plans. Research shows that they're likely more likely to come back if something goes wrong or if they get worse. So experience to us is very important. They also patients vote with their feet. So if they have a great experience, they'll come back to see us. They'll continue to help us grow this paramedic program. So please keep fostering that team approach and collaboration. Now, a lot of you have already hit the ground running, understanding that those that missed the initial town hall may have didn't get the 10,000 foot view. The first part of the process is all the background stuff, vaccinations, drug screen, and license verification. We can't get past that. We can't put you into the system until we get all of those pieces back. With vaccinations, if for whatever reason you grow a limp monkey arm, if you get whatever shot, there are procedures to follow for exemptions. That's all okay. But you've got to let us know. Anything that remains incomplete, we just can't get past that. So we've got a few that have already completed that. Once that happens, Elise will load you into the system, and that's when we can start getting some of the other pieces like badges, EPIC training. Right off the bat, you're going to get the bread and butter compliance training. And what compliance training means, it's all of the regulatory, most of the regulatory, if not all of the regulatory pieces. HIPAA, you're not going to talk to anyone outside of the hospital with identifying information, EMTALA, all of those pieces that should not be foreign to you with your current role. A lot of these modules are online, and these online modules are set to be able to help also guide you as you change environment from the back of an ambulance and the scene to an emergency department. These online modules are ongoing, but we do expect you to complete that education. And we've got about 5 or 6 of you that have already done the EPIC training and most of the background pieces. So we should be able to start gathering your availability for an on-site orientation. That's where coordination with Curtis, with Summer, with Paul, and really matching you with somebody at the hospital level to start. This is how we send the blood. This is how we package the blood. This is the type of EKGs that we do. You've done EKGs a ton of the field. Machine's going to be a little bit different. And those explanations where you're just there to learn process, not necessarily help with all of the day-to-day stuff as well just yet until you get your feet wet. So we do expect that orientation pieces. That orientation modules that we mentioned are online. Again, they're meant to transition and start getting you to think about your different environment. Yes, blood glucose monitoring, but it's how do you do blood glucose monitoring with the tools that we've got for you? How do we handle trauma? Why do we need to think about human trafficking? How do I raise a safety event? What is IRIS? And if I see someone in restraints, what's our policy around restraints? Sepsis is another piece. It's one of the biggest killers in an emergency department. What's your role with sepsis? What's your understanding about sepsis in regard to our regulatory body and the different bundle requirements? So I'll send you a system video to really get your feet wet on that. But these modules, again, are going to be important for you to complete to help you also transition into the hospital realm. Summer, anything on the modules?
No, I don't think so. I think they're pretty self-explanatory.
And are they safe? You've done definitely more than I've done for are they self-paced? They can pause when they want to?
Yeah, typically with the pathways, you can pause when you want to. A lot of them have that test at the end. Some have just an acknowledgement, but that's not common. Typically, it's a 5 to 20 question exam at the end, and you can retake it as many times as you need to until you pass.
Perfect. Appreciate that. So from a communication standpoint, please, when we set you up with someone that's going to help you orient, at the end of the day, you're going to check in with your charge nurse. We do expect you to participate in those team huddles, help us address any issues, suggest improvements. and maintain that clear, precise communication with all our medical staff. But at the end of the day, you've got to understand that as part of this team, that we welcome you into this part of this team. We really have an open door policy for raising concerns. Again, I'll mention the concerns go up, not out. So please let me know, let Jen, Paul, Curtis, even Dr. Young, you've got a huge tiered structure of folks that will listen to you. And at the end of the day, we want to continue to get better together. Now, this is just sort of housekeeping pieces. We've talked about pay. Pay will happen once a month and you'll get paid with the same date as our clinicians, I believe the 20th of every month. We have asked that that there be invoices. Now, if we get this scheduling software, I don't think we'll have to do that. At least that'll be a point for us to follow up on. If we do have the scheduling software for the hours, the only thing that you'll have to email us in real time is if there's any adjustment to your shift hours. So again, once we get the scheduling software going, you need to please email us about any shift hours in real time, meaning at the end of the shift, you send Elise an email. You don't have to be a text message. You send her an email, CC me about, whatever happened and if we need to do any shift hour changes. And understand that this is 1099. So you'll have, you just like your other job, you'll have to file taxes for it. You'll get a form for 1099 and we can either give you a check or we can set up for direct deposit. At the end of the day, you play a critical role in helping us with ED operations, with patient care. Please always remember to ask questions. Please always remember to give us feedback. I think all those that have worked with me know that after every single meeting, I ask for feedback. So that will be very common. If you're not used to that, that will be very common to what we do. And remember that alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. So I'm looking forward to kicking off this program. I did this town hall exactly in 50 minutes, so we can have 10 minutes for questions. Anybody have any questions or any other comments from our leaders? We'll start with that. Elise, anything I forgot? Joe, Jen?
Nothing on my end. I did have a question whether orientation shifts will be paid for.
Yes. A great question.
Do we have an estimate of time for the orientation shift, a 4-hour or 8-hour day?
Summer, do you have a preference on the length of, the question is, do we have a preference on orientation length?
They're gonna do 10-hour shifts here, right, at the Woodlands?
Yes.
So I would say a 10-hour orientation.
I would agree with that, and I'm supportive of what our nursing leaders believe is appropriate, and sounds like Summer agrees to a full shift of orientation. Again, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Because you're there, you're hand in hand with someone that's going to mentor you, coach you, and again, all of this scope of practice, this is your bread and butter in the back of an ambulance at the scene. It's how do we transition you successfully to start operating within the hospital with our equipment. So that piece will be important. Jen, you want to make a comment for the vintage?
Sorry. I just wanted to say full shift as well for vintage.
Okay, so that'll be a 12-hour orientation for the vintage, except the weekends, I believe we left them at 10. Great question. Anyone else with other questions?
Dr. Rosio, we can bring up the fact that the people who are not able to do EPIC, we are going to allow to do orientation still.
Correct. And Summer, I don't know if you were there when we discussed this with Paul and Curtis. Paul and Curtis believe that even if we don't have EPIC training, there would still be value in helping with, blood draws, putting IVs, but the IVs they won't be able to document. So we did not have time to, or I guess the opportunity to ask if we don't have the EPIC training in place for some of the Woodlands paramedics, do you still believe that we want them to come and help again with front end, take vitals and all of that before the EPIC training, or your preference would be to hold off until that's
preference would
completed?
be, yeah, to wait just so that they're, do we know what the delay is or the time frame?
Yes, yes. The whole pathway piece, that's the worst. We just heard yesterday, Elise, or the day before, that the whole pathway freeze also affects EPIC training. So we're trying to get exactly. So that would mean that some of your folks, the majority of your folks for the Woodlands, would be pushed for a January start.
Okay, well, let's go ahead then do that. It's not ideal, but I'm fine with that.
Okay, and we can talk offline, Summer, and we can be very strategic about what they can do without the EPIC piece. And same thing, Jen. We can talk with Curtis and we can be strategic about what they can do without. There'll be some that have the EPIC capability, some that don't. And more than anything is we want to be a value add. So we just need to be very strategic about what they can do.
Dr. Roseo, quick question for you. I know we brought this up when you did the skills lab. Some of the other additional training you're going to do you know if they will be CE approved, or will they be able to get CE hours for attending any of those skill sets that are offered for skills training?
At the end of, yeah, I'll check with Dr. Fagan, but she
Okay.
was able to do it for our procedure course. I wouldn't see how this would be any different. And a lot of the paramedics that went took full advantage of the entire course, and they stayed there and they got credit for all of it. So I think that's a great question, and I wouldn't see why we wouldn't have the same capability.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, everybody, you have my phone number. And if not, you have Elise's. And if you don't have my phone number, Elise can give you my phone number. You've got me on the group me as well. I truly firmly believe, and Elise can be the witness, that you will not find a more responsive group. If I don't answer in a few hours, Jen can also and Summer be a witness. I better be in the back of a milk carton like he's lost or something. I'm extremely responsive. So please let us know if you have any concerns. If you don't hear back from me timely, just shoot me a reminder. Sometimes I do get a little bit flooded with messages depending on the day and the time of day. But I appreciate your time this afternoon. I did want to keep it to 1 hour so that we can send this as a recording. Thank you for all the leaders that showed up in the call to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the facilities. You'll have a good rest of your day, and I look forward to working with you. If I don't see you before then, happy holidays as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all.